Hello, welcome, and thank you for tuning in. I'm your host, Aaron Diaz, and you're listening to episode number 29 of Live the Good Life from the podcast studios of Aaron's Wine Chronicles corporate headquarters in the heart of Washington wine country. Today, I'll be interviewing a relatively new winery owner and outstanding winemaker who just set up shop in downtown Walla Walla. He brings energy and passion to his winemaking, and he comes with an impressive pedigree in the wine industry as well. We'll be discussing his past experiences in the wine industry. We'll talk about his new winery, his winemaking approach, and his plans for the next vintage. My guest is the owner and winemaker of Turtle Wines, located in Walla Walla, Washington. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Mr. David Hess to the show. Hey. Most people don't get that kind of welcome.
I love it, yeah.
They really think you're something else.
It's a big crowd tonight.
You're going to have to live up. So, David, what do you think?
Is
this your first podcast?
Technically my second podcast.
All right.
My brother does a little podcast in Oklahoma.
Cool.
About small businesses. But yeah, this is my first wine podcast. Very excited to be here. Thanks so much for having me to the studio.
Yeah. Well, thanks very much, David, for taking time out of your day to come down and join our podcast. Why don't you give us a little background and introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, sure. I'm David, owner, winemaker, janitor for Turtle Winery. We're out of Walla Walla, and I've been in the industry here now about 15, 20 years.
Cool. Well, again, thank you for being here. It's great to have you on the show. And one thing that I should let you know, we did talk about it just before recording, is that we have a tradition here at Aaron's Wine Chronicles podcast. While we are in the studio, we typically, it's customary for us to be enjoying some sort of libation. Most of the time, it's a nice glass of wine. Sometimes it's a Scotch or Irish whiskey. But in this case, we are enjoying a 2018 Cabernet Sauvignon from Force Majeure Winery in Milton, Freewater, Oregon. It was crafted by their former winemaker, Todd Alexander. The grapes are sourced from Force Majeure's vineyard in the Red Mountain AVA. And that's kind of apropos because after the podcast, you and your girlfriend and I are going to go do some wine tasting on Red Mountain.
Absolutely.
And so you'll get some experience as to, and we'll actually drive right by Force Majeure's vineyard as well.
Awesome.
So any thoughts on this wine?
Yeah, I'm really enjoying it. The first thing I noticed was the nose really popping out, which I love, especially on a cab. Sometimes it can be a little more subdued, so yeah. I really like when the nose kind of punches out at you. Good balance, really fun flavor. And what's fun for me is I made Cab in 18 off of Red Mountain too.
Oh, did you? Okay.
There's like some similarities, but then also I can see where he went a little different,
But what vineyard did you source those grapes from?
So we have two wines from up there. One from Aquilini, and they're a little bit younger vines, and so a little bit kind of more structural. And then we have our Reserve Bordeaux style blend, and that all comes from Quintessence.
Oh, Quintessence, yeah. Yeah, that's the mother lode there.
Yeah.
So tell us about your early years, where you were raised. Tell us about your family. Tell us about your girlfriend. How's life treating you right now?
It's pretty great, yeah. So I was raised in Wichita, Kansas, which, if you don't know anything about Kansas, that's the big city.
Have you ever heard of a little town called Lyons, Kansas?
That sounds familiar, yeah. Is that...
Lyons.
Yes.
And it's probably got population of 50, I don't know, maybe 100.
That sounds right.
My dad was born there. Of course, my dad's passed away, but he was born there. And my family on my dad's side was in Kansas, in Lyons for many years. There's salt mines there, and my grandfather worked in the salt mines. So.
Yeah. Actually, really famously, they have salt mines that they store all the old films in.
Oh, really?
Near Hutchinson, Kansas.
Wow.
So, the salt preserves the films.
So, you're from Wichita?
From Wichita.
You go to high school there and all that?
Same school my whole life. Same little school on the east side of town. And yeah, I pretty much always wanted to do wine stuff. So, even from that age.
How did you go from Kansas to, well, you can tell us about that later when we get to the questions on where your experience came from, because you've kind of been all over. But when you start in Kansas, you didn't have a pair of red shoes that you clip together. And
They're not stock issue in Kansas.
okay. Well, let's take a little bit deeper dive into your wine story,
Sure.
And then we'll get to those questions. How did you first get started in the wine industry, and do you have any sort of formal training, degree or certification in enology or viticulture or both?
Yeah, so the first wine I ever made was one of those home winemaking kits when I was about 14 years old.
Wow, 14.
Yeah.
They sell them to people who are 14?
That's actually the cutest part of the story. Was talking to the gal. We have a little homebrew store in Wichita. I was talking to the gal, and she's like, look, it's not illegal for me to sell you this because it's just grape juice and yeast. These are all legal products. But I'm not going to sell it to you unless your mom comes in. And so I had to go out to the car and get my mom, bring her into this shop, and she sold it to her technically. But yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah, and so then at 14, you're making your first home batch of wine.
Mm-hmm.
How did that turn out?
Terrible. It's awful. In fact, I asked my mom about it years later. I was like, why would you let a 14-year-old, boy do that in your house? She's like, well, I know you really seemed passionate. Plus, I knew that anything you made down there was going to be just awful, right, and you were never going to drink. Exactly. And she was dead on, yeah.
But what about that experience enticed you to keep going? Obviously, you kept going.
Yeah, I couldn't get enough. It was so funny. Like I used to read like big nonfiction books about wine, and that was totally weird for me as a teenager.
So were you like obsessive compulsive about wine?
Kind of, yeah. I was sneaking wine books into school.
Oh wow! So you had a passion from a young age. I mean, that's kind of unheard of.
Yeah.
Most people fall into winemaking and they've had a career somewhere else. Or I know a lot of people who are chemists or chemistry, backgrounds and stuff, and winemaking is a real great chemistry experiment, right?
Sure, yeah.
Every vintage.
Well, the funnest part about our job is that we actually get to eat and drink what's in the lab, which most people don't get to do that.
Right. Wow. So based on your experiences in like the Walla Walla Valley, and I think you had experiences down under.
Yep.
And also in Napa, how would you describe the differences between the wines of these three unique and very distinct regions?
Well, so it's kind of interesting to me because when I was in college and reading and learning about wine, I really thought I was like a Pinot hipster, and I thought I would be like living in the hills.
Like Paul Giamatti?
Yeah, you'd never hear from me again. And then I wound up down in Napa making big Napa cabs. So
where in Napa were you at?
I worked for a few different outfits. I worked at Hourglass Winery. They're under the Odette label.
Odette, yeah. I've been to Odette.
Oh, excuse me. I am misspeaking. Sorry, it's I worked for Odette first, and they're under the Plump Jack group. That's what I was thinking.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And then I worked for Hourglass, and I worked for Maryvale.
Maryvale, okay. Interesting. So you did some time. I don't mean that doing time, right? But you had some experiences down there. Were you assistant winemaker or were you a head winemaker?
Oh, I spent most of my career as a cellar rat, vineyard rat. I was I worked from the ground up. I really put in my hours on the crush pad floor and stuff. But that's really what I wanted. I think I sort of intentionally took the harder path because I wanted to get as much experience and just get in front of as many good winemakers as I could. And, steal all their ideas.
So in Napa, how long were you there for?
A few years. I also worked the Sonoma side a little.
Okay.
And then in the off season, I would do like Australia and New Zealand stuff. So.
Australia and New Zealand stuff. I mean, that sounds really cool to me. Is it true that those huntsman spiders are huge? I mean, do you see them?
They're not the most dangerous ones, but they are the scariest.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I'm an arachnophobe. Big.
Okay.
I always have been. And when I see even small spiders, I'm freaking out.
Oh no, this one came off the ceiling and it was like a dinner plate coming at you. And I was like, where am I?
I almost spit up my wine. Yeah, that's crazy. But you had experiences there. What kind of wines did you work, or grapes did you work with down there? Shiraz?
Again, very silly. I thought I was going to make big Australian Shiraz.
Okay.
Turns out the company I was working for made the complete opposite. They made very structured, very soft, very nuanced wines. and they were sort of like rebelling against that big Australian style,
right,
in their own right. So it was really funny to go like, okay, I'm ready to make these big Shiraz, and then we get there and it's just like delicate Mourvedres.
But still, I mean, you were in the area, so you got to experience a lot of those big Shiraz, those big wines. Right?
Oh,
I mean, I'm sure you took away something from that aspect as well.
Oh yeah, and it's always interesting to go overseas just to see like the little differences, just in how they move things around.
Mm-hmm.
The fittings are different fittings than you would use here in America. It's really neat to just see those little processes and what they do. And Australia's on it. They've really come a long way with their like universities, enology programs and stuff like that. They are really on top of it.
Yeah.
I would put them as kind of the gold star for New World winemaking. They're really.
Do they publish a lot of research?
They publish research. Yeah. They also have done a lot of unique research because they have unique problems there, like salty soils and stuff. And so a lot of the research that comes out of there is always really interesting.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And then so you were doing the Napa / New Zealand, Australia experience simultaneously. You would leave for a few months and then come back to Napa, or
exactly.
Is that what you did there? So then, at what point did you say, okay, I'm going to go to Walla Walla because the town's so nice they named it twice? And
so I had been really like every day thinking about what do I want to do with my own winemaking? Well, what do I want to, a daily thought experiment. And after my dad passed away, I was like, I just really want to do that. And so where do I want to do that? And I love Washington. I think we make world-class wines here. And so, I was more than willing to bet my future on Washington, and I'm glad I did because I love this area.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you did too, because, when I dropped into your place, my first time experiencing turtle wines, and this was a few months ago, right? If I remember correctly, it was probably maybe 3 months ago by now. And we'd been talking about doing the podcast ever since, and finally we were able to schedule this. I was really surprised. I was really impressed. Across the board. I mean, the tasting room, I like the ambiance. I like the fact that you're there, you're coming up and greeting the people. And part of that is because you're relatively new and you're probably not going to hire a whole bunch of people right out of the gate. But it was good having a talk with you. I was able to really sense your energy level and your passion for wine. That came across right away.
I'm so glad.
And then I'm tasting the wines and I'm like, man, this is brand new. This is a brand new winery. It's been over here, maybe a year it was there, maybe?
Yeah, we celebrated our year here in January.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, and so it was like, I don't know why I hadn't been there sooner, because I go to Walla Walla quite a bit. I just may not have seen it or gone down that far. You're kind of towards the end of the
We're on the other
road.
end of downtown, for sure.
But I was really pleased. My wife loved the wines as well. Of course, we walked away with a few bottles, and I really enjoyed it. And so from that point, I was like, this guy's onto something. A, he's young. B, we talked a little bit there, and I know you had been around. You had done the Napa Sonoma Down Under experience too, and then you come to Walla Walla and you're setting up shop here, and I'm like, man, this is good. This is good having somebody of your caliber, of your what generation are you?
I think I'm a millennial.
You millennial?
Yeah.
That's okay.
It's funny to me though, because they, I hadn't heard that term until I was like 18, 19, 20.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So it's always get confused, but yeah.
Well, I mean, when I talk about wine issues moving forward for Washington wine and other industries, other regional wine industries as well, I think in terms of generations, because all of the baby boomers like me, we're dying. I mean, we're dying off. We're getting older.
Sure.
We're and as the older you get, the less you visit tasting rooms. You start health problems. People stop getting out as much. And who's going to take our spots in the wineries? Who's going to keep the industry going? When you look at the habits and the statistics of the younger generations, what are they drinking? I don't think they're drinking red wine, to be honest with you. So that has to change. People like you, who are more connected to the Gen Xers and Gen Zers, right? I think have a better shot at trying to turn this around.
Okay.
I just throw that at you, thinking that maybe you come up with different ideas on how to run your tasting room, what kind of events you might have that will attract the younger folks instead of the 70, 80, 90-year-olds who still love love the wines, but they're not going to keep the wine industry afloat.
Sure. And, I think people are reacting a little, or maybe even overreacting a little bit. The wine industry has seen like exponential growth for the last 30 years. And we haven't really lost sales. We've just kind of plateaued.
Okay.
So I think it's just because of, whatever.
And the economy.
Right,
yeah.
Is mainly that. And then, I think just moving forward, I always try when I have guests in the tasting room to make the experience custom for every person who comes in. You'll get people in, they're asking 1,000 questions. They want to know everything about the wine. And so I really try to service that and be a source of entertainment, I suppose.
Yeah.
Well, then you'll get other people in the tasting room who are on a date. I'm like, they don't want you to talk. They're like, just pour the wine and get out of here, guys.
Yeah,
So.
No, I understand. You got to be sensitive to who you're talking to and what they're doing.
Right.
Well, I think that you've got as good a shot as anybody in downtown Walla Walla of helping change the trajectory of how things go with the younger generation.
I'll do my best.
So over the years, who has had the most influence on you with regard to wine?
So you sent me this question and I read it in advance and I really put some thought into it, because the truth is that I bounced around so much. I always wanted to have like a real mentor. But I wound up just kind of bouncing around and talking to, stealing little bits and pieces from every winemaker that I could. So a lot of my education feels kind of, strapped together from all these different sources. But there's definitely two people who really stand out in my life. One was Dr. Fellman from Washington State University.
Okay.
Who told my dad, yes, he could get a job if he graduates with a wine degree. And that.
So is this from the Wine Institute here in the Tri-Cities?
No, he worked at the Pullman.
Pullman campus. Okay.
Yeah, but same program. And if he hadn't told my dad that I could get employed after college, I don't know if I would have gotten to go to Washington State. So, but also he's just the smartest person I ever met, and that had a huge effect on me. Of like, wow, this guy knows more about fruit chemistry than any human being that I know of. You know what I mean? Like even reading papers and stuff. Like he's just such a pistol, and I loved getting to learn from him. And then the other one was the first person who gave me a job. Colin Morell is a viticulturist for the Hogue Cellars, and he took a chance on a kid from Kansas with zero experience. Yeah, and. I'll forever be thankful for him. And especially, too, because he's kind of that old school guy. So not only did he give me a job, but he would go out in the vineyard with me and, like, try to educate me and train me. And, I've had some jobs with very excellent winemakers who just don't have the time to do that for you. You just can't, they're doing way too much to be able to pull you aside for a whole day and teach you about wine.
Yeah.
But he took the time, and that really means a lot to me.
That's cool. So what motivates you? What drives you? Where does the energy and the passion that you have for wine, where does it come from?
Yeah, that's a mystery to me, too. Because I made this decision, like I said, as a teenager. I was like, this is what I want to do, and this is what I want to learn. And I've never regretted it. I've never.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it's waning, right? I mean, the more you do, the more you want to do.
Everything I learn is just as exciting to me now as it ever was. Like I want to learn the next new thing.
You found the job. Yeah. I mean, you found the job that makes you everything that you want to be, right? I mean, some people live a life in a job that they hate. They just can't wait to leave every day, right? And it's miserable. Oh, what a miserable life. I mean, my career, I enjoyed my career, and I had a lot of fun. It took me a lot of different places in the world, and same thing with yours.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, at the end of the day, it's still just a job, in a lot of ways. But there's nothing else I want to do with my life, and it's the only thing I want to do until I'm dead. Yeah. Like, I just, I love it.
Okay, so when you are planning to craft a wine, right? The grapes have not been picked yet. You haven't even maybe figured out where you're going to get the fruit from. But when you're planning to craft a wine, how do you determine where to source your grapes from? Now, I know that part of that answer probably is, well, you have to have availability because there's probably some vineyards that you're like, oh, I'd love to get fruit from there, but it's all sold, right? I mean, and I'm low on the list right now because I'm a young winemaker, and there's all these older winemakers who are on the list, and they're going to take all that fruit.
Sure.
That probably happens periodically, but the question probably also gets to what are some of your favorite vineyards and what those particular vineyards provide you in terms of the specific varietals that they have, the flavor profiles that they offer, and other factors that you're looking for. So I guess it's kind of a holistic question, but when you craft a wine and you're going after fruit, what are the things that you're looking for in that fruit?
So I tend to try and take a little bit different approach where, because I have collected all these different kind of techniques for winemaking. Mm-hmm. I sort of think of it as like just more tools in the winemaker's tool belt. There's all these different techniques, and the real trick is just to like figure out which one is appropriate right now. And so I really try to customize my program around the fruit and the wine, like as I'm tasting them, and try to let it make the decision for me as opposed to apply my own kind of outside ideas onto it. And so for that kind of leads me towards using very specific winemaking techniques on specific grapes.
Okay.
So for instance, we do this like in-barrel fermentation method. And for that, I feel like I wouldn't use that on something too light or doesn't have a lot of body or structure.
Sure.
So we did that technique with specifically Red Mountain fruit. And yeah, it was killer because Red Mountain's not that. It's big and bold and brassy. And so we can kind of use this more gentle extraction method. We can use these kind of unique techniques and still bring out a lot of the character of the wine. So really, yeah, to me, it's about applying just the right technique with the right fruit. And if you can do that, and sort of like famous chefs always say, if you can just not mess it up, I think that's all. It's going to lead you to making the best wine you could make off of that fruit. So
okay, well, embedded in that question was kind of a question that you kind of dodged. I'm not saying you did it on purpose, but no. So if you could name for me what you feel are your top 3 vineyards for fruit of the highest quality. I don't care about the varietal or whatever, just quality and what you're looking for. If you had to, rank, and I know that's kind of a loaded question because it changes year to year probably. And I mean, there are so many really, depending on what you want to do with the fruit, there are probably a short list of vineyards that would be your top for that varietal and maybe a different one for the, you know what I'm saying, for different varietals.
It's funny. My 3 dream wine or vineyards to work with, all cab, all 3 cab,
okay,
but just different styles. I've gotten to work with one of them, Quintessence, up on Red Mountain, and that's like a dream come true right there. I love working with their fruit. A lot of contracts you have some say as a winemaker to be like, oh, I think we should do this in the vineyard or that in the vineyard. I've never said that to the folks at Quintessence. They all are always on the ball and they're ahead of me, if anything. They're so great. The other 2 that I would love to work with, Dream Fruit, and this comes from my time in the vineyards, working for Hogue and being with my viticulturist. One is Dionysus.
Yep.
There's a really old block right in the center that they may be pulling out. I don't know. It's been there for 30-something years. Is it? I forget the number.
D11?
It's maybe. It's like right in the center.
I don't know, but D11 is one of them that Revelry Winery has some really great cabs that I think they pull from D11. And they've been doing that for a long time. They were in Walla Walla.
Okay, it's probably that one then. Yeah.
But and I'm not an expert in Dionysus, the blocks, but that number just came out based on my experiences.
It's fine. I'm more like remembering standing in the vineyard, so I'm more like it's the one where I can see the river kind of looks like this. But that's a dream fruit, and then the other one would be Shampoo out of Horse Heaven.
Shampoo Ox?
Yeah, exactly.
I like to massacre the words. I like to massacre. No, that's fantastic.
Yeah, I love Cab now. I'm a complete convert. So
Really?
I love my Bordeaux's and my Cabs now.
Yeah.
And those are three of my favorite in the state. But there's so many good spots.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
From Snipes to Wallou. We've got new ones popping up every year, it feels like. So I'm excited to work with all of it. I love Washington fruit.
So we're going to change gears a little bit. We've talked about, fruit and vineyards. Want to talk about barrel aging.
Okay.
Want to talk about the program that your barrel aging programs and the cooperages that you like to go after and the reasons behind that. Because to me, the barrel programs and the cooperages, that is a career in wine all on its own. I mean, wine can be segmented into a lot of different compartments, but the barrel programs and the cooperages and the wood and the toast and all of the combinations of aging in different types of barrels over a 2.5 year period, there's a lot of complexity involved there. And some of it is art and some of it is science, as far as I'm concerned.
Sure.
And I ask this question a lot of winemakers, and I get a lot of different answers.
Okay.
I'll give you a little context. I was wine tasting in Spokane this weekend, and I went to Barrister Winery up there, owned by a bunch of attorneys, barristers, and their logo is the scales of justice,
sure.
right? And it's pretty cool. I've had their wines for years. This time, for the first time, I hadn't been up there in a while. I go up and I look at their profiles of their wines and their spec sheets, and a number of their wines were aged in barrel for, 18 to 24 months, but in 5 or 6 different barrels.
Oh, okay.
So you had American, Hungarian, French, and there was 2 or 3 others. I'd have to.
Were they doing like 200% oak or like double oak?
No. And it was smaller. Like it would be 40% American and 30% French, and then 10% this, 10% that, 15%, whatever. It all adds up to 100. But they were doing this with so many different barrels over the life of their Petit Verdot and their Cab Sauv and their Malbec. And I was like, I've never seen that before. Sometimes you see American and French, or you'll see, American and Hungarian or whatever. I rarely see 3 or 4, but 5 and 6 barrels from different countries. I mean, different regions.
Sure.
Right? In Europe, Eastern Europe. Bulgarian? Is there Bulgarian oak? I think Bulgarian oak was one of them.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, and I really not seen a lot of people use Bulgarian oak before. And anyway, I throw that out there because this kind of is a context of the question. So, what are some of your favorite cooperages, and what factors are most important to you when you pay the exorbitant price you're paying for those barrels,
Sure.
And then, with the tariffs and everything, I don't know if that's making it even worse, but, we'll see how that plays out.
There's a few, I feel like the best tip I've ever given about selecting oak is that at the end of the day, you're just going to have to pick one and try it.
Wow.
There's lots of notes. There's lots of ways to pick oak, going through the tasting notes, and one of the best things you can do is go try other people's wines. That's a little secret. You should definitely ask them about their barrel program as you're drinking. But at the end of the day, you're just going to have to try something and see what you get. That happens a little bit in this industry, even with like planting vines. At the end of the day, they didn't know that Cab was going to work here in Washington until someone planted it and gave it a shot, and it worked out.
And then there's so many clones out there.
Yes.
Right? And so there's another thing, just with the vines themselves.
Oh, right. And as we're talking about barrel aging too, you can get all the way down to not only choosing the forest you want your barrel from, you can choose the tree. If you want to spend that kind of money, you can get all the way down to that level. So it's fascinating. The other thing that I think is really important about barrel aging is realizing the speed. So every barrel has kind of like a speed that it's going to age the wine at, depending on like how tight knit the grains.
The grains are, yeah, right.
So a looser barrel's faster, tighter barrel's going to sit longer in barrel. So you also want to think about kind of factors like that. For me, I only use French oak. I like it.
Aren't we spoiled?
Yeah, I like French oak. Typically, it's prized just because it has a little bit more of that vanilla in it and fewer kind of bitter notes to it, and so it's kind of just the best one in my opinion.
Yeah.
But I don't have as much experience with like Hungarian. I would like to try some Hungarian oak. I've heard some good things about it.
Let me ask you a question. I don't know this. I probably should. I've had enough Spanish wines and Tempranos, and but my question to you is: in Spain, what are the predominant types of barrels that do they get French oak and do their stuff with the French oak, or do they have Spanish oak that they use, or whatever? Do they have their own wood in Spain that they use for barrels?
I'm actually inclined to believe, and I don't know this for a fact, but that they've really modernized their industry, and so I would not be surprised if they're using everything under this. I bet there's even some American oak barrels floating over.
Oh, that makes sense.
But I'm guessing they use a lot of French, and then Hungarian. It's basically just French, but a little cheaper.
Okay.
So I'm sure they're using Hungarian and other sorts of oak. I don't know what they grow. I would like to know. That would be interesting to find out if they're growing any barrel oak themselves.
Yeah.
They grow so much cork there in Portugal too. You know? Yeah.
Right.
So
switch gear again. We've talked about the barrels and the vineyards and the fruit. Have you had to deal with smoke taint? Have you had to deal with the impact of, say, wildfires? Now, Napa gets wildfires quite a bit, and they had some devastating ones in the last decade or so. That burned some wineries and also impacted a lot of fruit out there. And of course, in Washington, we are not immune to that either. We've got in the gorge, especially with the wind and the hot summers. Once you get a fire going, it's going to take a lot of acreage out, and the smoke just hangs. And I don't know if you're familiar with some of the fires that we've had, but there's been times when the smoke was so dense, and it's like in Fresno, California, they have that Thule fog. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but the fog is so dense you really can't see 2 or 3 feet beyond your headlights. It's so dense, and you get these multi-car pileups in Fresno and Bakersfield down there. And,
oh, sure.
And so anyway, that's the thickness of the smoke at times, and that the vineyards are eating that stuff up, and there are a number of philosophies out there. If it's too intense and they can't do something with it, they just dump the fruit. They don't use it, whatever. And then some people use the fruit, and their wine clubs say, "Oh my gosh, this was amazing! I love that smokiness that you got in it, right?" Yeah. And it's like you can use it if it's not going to detract and be a negative on the palate. Might be an added dimension that some people think you did it on purpose. My question to you is: have you ever had to deal with it, and do you have any special things that you do to address smoke taint?
So fortunately, I've never had to deal with it directly with my wines. I've been very lucky, fingers crossed, or knock on wood or whatever. It hasn't come across my plate just yet. Certainly at other wineries I've worked at, smoke has popped up. And yes, usually it gets downgraded to just the cheapest wine they're going to make, and they're going to throw all the chemicals at it, and we're done. It's just what it is what they would say.
Okay.
But I am starting to hear more about people finding creative ways to make products out of that. And yes, I've heard a number of people come in, people even in my wine club are like, "Have you ever had smoky wine?" Like smoked wine? like
smoked salmon?
I've tasted it, but I wasn't happy. So, but I would love to, I think they're getting more and more on the ball about how we can reduce the impact of it. But my best fire story is I was in the Napa, was it 16, I think, fire in Napa. And it was one of the strangest experiences of my career. I remember driving to work and seeing helicopter, drip
with a bucket,
pulling water right off the side of the highway and flying right over your head. Opus One, they had
Opus One
100. They had double or triple their regular crew, and they're just pulling in fruit as you see the fire rolling down the mountain behind it.
Oh,
so bizarro world.
Yeah. Apocalyptic, huh?
Well, it got even worse because this was also the year of the solar eclipse.
Oh.
So I was standing in the vineyard, and at noon, it's so smoky, it's like twilight. It's already dusk dawn kind of condition. And then all of a sudden, I can't see the paper right in front of my face that I'm writing on. And I look up, and I remember, oh, yeah, the solar eclipse.
Oh.
It was night at noon. It was the strangest thing in my career.
Yeah. And you didn't sacrifice any small animal or anything. You just standing there.
No, we were living out of a dirt cheap motel. My dog and I I had to bring her to work every day. It was a weird situation. And then I had to like prove to the police officer that I lived in, because I was living in Calistoga, which is really close to the fire.
I know where Calistoga is.
And we were evacuated for a few days. So I remember digging through the back of my car, like trying to find a paycheck to be like, look, I live here. Please let me go home. Yeah. It was a really interesting experience. But, overall, those fires are just murder on the industry. Yeah. And I've seen it where it comes right up to the vineyard. The only thing that stopped the fire was like they put the irrigation on.
Oh,
the irrigation tube stopped the fire.
Jeez.
It's
crazy.
Not my favorite part of the industry.
Here's a really important question for you. Could you hand me the decanter with the wine in it, please?
I can, absolutely. That is...
I just want to get a little refill here.
Sure. Wow.
There you go.
It's opened up even more just sitting.
Yeah. Go ahead and drink what you can. I don't want to throw this bottle away.
Well, we need to do a little drinking before we go wine.
Oh, yeah, we do. We have to get our palates, the pH balanced in there.
I do actually do that at work. I'll, before I start tasting, I'll just grab whatever wine's handy and just rinse my mouth.
Makes a big difference. Okay, this is a loaded question. It's kind of a multi-part question. But maybe you can describe and break down your winemaking philosophy. And I guess it's kind of loaded in that when you say winemaking philosophy, that's a nebulous term to use, right? But people use it all the time when they're interviewing winemakers. So I've kind of taken it. But I guess a philosophy can include processes and protocols, but it can also be soft emotion from a winemaker. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
To me, I'm trying to define it for you based on what I'm trying to ask, right?
Okay.
What goes into your making a wine from start to finish from the aspect of the art side of it?
Oh, okay.
Because, there are things that you do, processes and protocols that all winemakers pretty much do, and it's like, okay, this is cookie cutter, but there's an aspect to that is not cookie cutter, right?
Yeah.
And so can you elaborate on that a little bit?
So I usually tell folks that 90% of my job is cleaning things. That's what I spend.
And I have heard that. I've heard that from people.
I clean a thing, and then I work with the wine for a second, and then I go clean that thing again.
Pepperbridge Winery, when you take the tour there and they take you through, they're really big on cleaning. Mm-hmm. And they have everything's well organized and just beautiful in there.
It's important, especially because we do like a lot of natural fermentation in the cellar and stuff, and so you got to be clean or you're going to have real problems. 9% of my job is science, so I get to use science.
Did you say 9?
9, yeah, 90%.
Oh, 90%.
90% is cleaning. 9% is science. So I get to use science a little bit throughout my day.
Really?
But it's mostly just cleaning. And then 1% is art. I get to be an artist like 1% of the time,
Really?
But it's every kind of like little decision you make along the way. And I sort of touched on it earlier when I was talking about like, everything to me is just a tool in the winemaker's tool belt. And it's just about applying that tool to the right circumstance. Mm-hmm. And so as I'm going through making a wine, first I'm like, okay, what fruit am I going to work with? That's number one question. Is your main and onlyest ingredient, especially if you're doing natural wine. Right. It's just grapes, And so I really want to know the fruit as well as I can, what to expect from it, but also just like what kind of characteristics is it big and bold? Is it, more nuanced, and that's going to really change what I'm thinking to do in the cellar. Mm-hmm. And then as we go through it, I'm you're just making these little tiny decisions, but each one changes the outcome. Everything's going to compound up and make a completely different wine.
So that 1% can have some significant impacts.
Absolutely, it does. Yeah. And then I always another one I like to describe is when it comes to blending. So a big part of what I like to try and do, especially with the Bordeaux blends or something like that, is create as many blending options as I can. And so that's why I wasn't really mystified when you're talking about the guy using all these different oaks, because that's just another way for him to create blending opportunities.
But doesn't it just multiply the complexity? Because each barrel, right, and each duration of time in that barrel, and each level of toast in that barrel, and each specific grain microstructure of the wood in those barrels, it does something different. So now you've got 5 or 6 different things going on for each barrel over that 24-month period or 20-month period when you're aging it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of just having 1 or 2 barrels where you have much less complexity to deal with.
Right, but what you do is you create like a color palette for yourself. If you think about art, each of those barrels is just a different color palette that he can then work with when creating his final blend.
Okay.
And I try to do very similar with mine, where I try to create a lot of blending options. I don't usually go for different, like a lot of different producers. I like to kind of stick with 1 or 2 cooperages.
Yeah.
Just to get a little bit more dedicated flavor. But within the winemaking itself, I'm always trying to find new blending options. So like for our Syrah, 1 barrel had, like a few of them, but 1 barrel is going to have stem inclusion, so 100% whole cluster, and 1 barrel is going to have no stem inclusion. And then that way, when I come to the blending part, I get to choose how much of that influence actually winds up in the final product.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. What are your thoughts on breathing wine? Do you prefer like the aeration nozzles or decanting or none at all? And I ask this because context again is because I've talked to some wine experts in the field, and some have told me, a very small portion, I would say 5% or less of the people that I've talked to over my years of engaging people in wine, and say you shouldn't breathe the wine. It doesn't need to breathe. You don't need to breathe the wine. You crack it open and you drink it. That is what the winemaker intended for you to experience. Not something that's been sitting oxidating for 2 hours in a decanter or whatever. No, you don't need to do any of that stuff. That's a fallacy. It's a whatever. And I think to myself, wow, to me, and these are people that have told me this, that I hold in high regard, and they've got multiple letters after their names, and all this, and I think to myself, wow, but in my experience and in the experience of the people that are close to me with wine, they're all unanimous in that breathing wine, if you do it properly, breathing wine really, really helps open things up. You even made the comment about the wine that we're drinking now, is that we tasted it right before recording. It's been about 45 minutes, and now you're saying, oh, this really opened up nicely, and it makes a difference. So with that context, give me your thoughts on that.
So for my personal enjoyment of wine, like when I'm drinking at home, I will usually open the bottle and then immediately take a drink, because I want to know where the wine's starting.
Right.
Like I like to know the starting
baseline. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And then I'll let it breathe, or just honestly, even just swirling in the glass probably puts more air contact than anything else. So if you don't have a decanter, it doesn't matter. You know.
Right.
I'll let it breathe a little while. Sometimes leave the bottle, open. And then I enjoy that because I like to go on kind of the journey. I want to taste, because it kind of starts opening up. You get to notice more and different flavors. Mm-hmm. And then, at a certain point, it starts to get a little...
Well, how many times? How many times in your wine tasting or in your serving wines to people, you crack them open, they're really, just fresh, boom, you pour them, people are drinking them. Then you only use half the bottle, you cork it. The next day, you open it up again, and all of a sudden, the wine is like the second day sometimes.
Different wine.
The wine's just like a different wine, but different, better even. Mm-hmm. And that happens. And so that gives credibility to the fact that when I hear people say, no, don't aerate, don't breathe the wine. Now, if it's a wine that's 15, 20 years old, you don't want to put it in a decanter for a couple of hours. You certainly don't want to do that.
That's what I was going to mention.
Okay.
I see a lot of people, especially in nice restaurants, and I think that's part of the service. Yeah. And, But they'll take really, really old wines and they'll decant them. And that's almost the opposite of what you should do.
That's exactly right.
Because they're just too delicate and they're going to fall apart fast. As soon as the bottle opens, it's deteriorating.
Yeah.
But honestly, if the som wants to decant it, I'm not going to argue. I don't care. I'll have it. It'll be fine. And we do use aerators on our wines. I think it just adds that little extra splash. It kind of just loosens up some of those volatile chemicals. So it's maybe a little bit of a tasting room trick to use the aerators, because what you want is for the customer to be able to smell the nose, as soon as it hits their muzzle.
Muzzle. Who are you serving? Hannibal Lecter? So, when you wine taste, what are your thoughts on the wine glass, the type of glass, the design of the glass, the wall thickness of the glass, all these different features that, the Riedels and the Zaltos and all these wine glass makers tout when they're selling their $100 plus per glass, wine glasses, right? I mean, so talk a little bit about your thoughts about wine glass design and shape on the impact of wine, and also corks or screw tops.
Okay. So as a winemaker, the most wine tasting I've done is out of a plastic pitcher, because that's what we use in the cellar. That's what I'm constantly using. Right. And you don't return the sample to the barrel, so you're going to throw it down the drain anyways. So you're just going to drink out of your little plastic cup, So I've done so much wine tasting of really nice wines out of plastic. Yeah. Does the different glass shape change the flavor profile? I'm not entirely convinced that it's going to change it in some way, but the design of the wine glass does help in that, it's trapping some of the volatiles in the top of it. You'll see in a lot of winemaker wine labs, they'll have little discs that they put on top of the glasses. And it's because winemakers are in and out of the lab, they're just going to be able to come in and pull that little disc off and immediately smell the wine and make a judgment. You see that a lot at really big wineries where they have to go through 100 samples in a day, So, the shape of it does make an effect of some importance, but a lot of the times I'm tasting out of the exact same glass. I think the standardization, I use pretty common Riedel taste, their basic tasting glass, and that's what I serve out of in the tasting room too. But I think it helps because it just makes everything fair and even. It's all the same exact glass. But for a nice dinner party or something, I want to see a big old red wine goblet,
like a Pinot glass or something.
I want to see all the different
glasses, though, the ones that are tapered and a little bit smaller at the top, they do focus the aromatics a little bit better too, right? I mean, and when you focus the intensity of the aromatics, you also are increasing the intensity of the palate because they're tied together. When you have a cold, you can't taste crap.
Right.
But when you don't have a cold and the aromatics are filling your nose, your flavors on your palate also tend to become enhanced. So that's where I don't know. I mean, I think that there is something to the shape and the design of a glass. I don't know how intense it is, but there is some improvement in sensitivity, olfactory sensitivity.
Sure, yeah.
With certain glasses.
And for our Bordeaux's and Cabs, I have a Bordeaux Riedel. I have a big old red wine glass.
Yeah.
And before I bottle it, I'm going to taste it out of that because I know that's what the customer is going to drink it out of. So it comes from music. I hear a lot of people talk about you should really listen to your song or whatever on the phone because that's where most people are going to listen to your song.
Yeah.
So it's kind of similar where I'm like, well, if this is what they're going to be drinking it out of, this is what I should finish my blend. I should have at least one last taste before we go to bottle.
Makes sense.
And then honestly too, it's just pretty. I like how all the little glasses lined up, it's just pretty.
Right.
And that can enhance the experience too.
Agreed.
So.
Yep. What are some of your favorite Washington wines? Just top 3.
I forgot to answer your cork question.
Yeah. Cork or screw top.
So the old rule of thumb, which I kind of stick to, is cheap wine, cheap enclosures. Nice wine, nice enclosures. Okay. So for our wines, like especially the ones that I want people to age, I'm using natural cork. We actually use natural cork for everything right now. That comes with problems. Like, don't get me wrong, it comes with some issues.
TCA, is that what that is?
It's becoming less common, but yes TCA, cork taint. Also, you can just get a bad close. Like you just get a bad seal. Yep. And then
what about synthetic cork?
I see the price. It is a bit of a price jump to go for real cork, but if you're gonna use synthetic, I mean, you might as well just use screw caps.
Really? Okay.
At that point, it's a better closure, honestly. At the end of the day, and for most of those wines, you're going to drink them in a year or two. Like you're not going to hold on to them for a decade.
Maybe not you, but no, there are many that I hold on to for a decade, or so. But I'm not your typical. I'm more of a wine. I'm a wine lover, but I'm also a wine collector. When I buy a wine that I find that I really like, I try to buy 4 or 5 bottles of it. Okay. And then I get a data point every couple of years or every 3 years, right? Mm-hmm. And over the profile of that wine's duration, I try to get a data point every 2, 3, 4 years.
That's super
until
fun.
I'm out of wine right?
I'd love to see your notes. That sounds like a hoot.
I try to do that when I can. And I don't do that for every wine because not every wine is gonna drive me to do that, right? But when I find wines, a nice Woodward Canyon old vines, or whatever. I mean, every once in a while you find something and you're like, okay, I'm going to get every vintage of this wine that comes out and I'm going to get at least 3 bottles of it. And then I'm going to have a vertical someday where I can do 8 bottles, in a row and just look at how things change.
Well, then I'm curious then, as a consumer, are you more interested in aging wines that have cork or screw top, or you don't care?
No, I like cork.
Yeah, okay.
I like cork.
So that's what I'm,
And you get that agglomeration of the crystalline buildup. What's that called?
Tartrates.
Yeah, tartrates. Yeah, you get that, and I like that because it kind of acts as a little sponge on the end, especially if you tilt your bottles like I do at a little bit of an angle, and you keep that cork moist. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know how wineries do this. I see wineries all the time where they put their wines up and they have them standing vertically. And they keep them up there for months and months at a time, standing vertically, and they'll sell them off of the credenza that's in the tasting room that's 72 degrees.
So I keep mine vertical.
Yeah.
And I'm already looking at getting some proper wine racks.
Some racks, yeah.
How I do it, though, is I only put like 5 bottles out at a time. Mm-hmm. And even then, if they don't sell with that week, I'll rotate them.
Yeah, there you go. So. Because then you're not kind of wasting wine. Because I think some people are buying wines off the shelves of some of these wineries that have been sitting up there.
I'm going to be honest. So I just bought, for Christmas, I bought a vintage white Burgundy. Mm-hmm. And so I'm spending a little money. It's a little Christmas gift for me and the girlfriend to sip on. And I felt like such a goober because I made them go in the back and pull out another bottle because they had one standing vertically. And I'm like, it's like a $200 bottle. I'm not buying the vertical one. Go get me another bottle. Right. I felt like such a goober.
No, that's the smart thing to do. Okay. And you know what? On their end, if they know that it should right away say, this guy knows this wine. They shouldn't even question it. They're like, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about, right? Because that's what I would think. If I was serving, I'd be like, that guy's 100% spot on. This thing's been sitting up here for 6 months or whatever.
Well, I just don't even know how long.
Yeah, you don't know how long.
It's a vintage wine, too. So
and typically,
it could have been there for 10 years.
In the tasting room. The tasting room is not 55 degrees. Mm. It's not. It's never. It's always 72, or sometimes on summer days, it's 76 all day long.
Yeah. Whenever my girlfriend comes to visit the tasting room, she's always cranking up the heat, and I'm like, stop it.
Okay. So, what are you most proud of with the wines you are currently serving at Turtle Wines? I think I know the answer to this, but I'm not going to do that.
No, I would lie. Now I'm curious.
No. Go ahead.
Honestly, my favoriteest thing is when someone takes a sip of the wine and immediately smiles. Mm-hmm. Like, there's just nothing more rewarding than that.
Yeah.
It's so many hours into just getting one bottle of wine ready for the customer, and you really pour. I mean, I pour my whole life, soul, blood, tears.
Well, it shows.
Thank you.
I mean, there's been many times when I've gone to many wineries, and you taste everything they've got, and even their reserves. And you walk away thinking, there's nothing there I would spend any money on. And you don't want to tell them that, and you don't. And I don't go out on social media and post, oh, I tasted all their wines and it was garbage. No, I would never do that, right? I just wouldn't purchase, and I just wait for a few years, and maybe the winemaker changes, or maybe the vintages change, and things become more palatable. You know, you don't want to tear people down. But how many times has that happened when I've gone out and I've tasted at 1,000+ wineries in Washington State? And it happens. It doesn't happen all the time, but it happens where I'll taste the entire damn menu and there's nothing on there that resonates with my palate. But that's not a bad thing. And then on the opposite side of things, when you're just starting out, the same thing happened to me. When I went in there and I was tasting your wines, I was like, oh my God, I was not expecting what I got. You know what I'm saying? It was across the board. There may have been one wine that was like so-so, where I was like, I don't think I really care for that. But everything, your blend, your Bordeaux blend, phenomenal.
Thank you.
That's what I walked with at least a couple of bottles of that for sure. But I thought that's what you were going to mention is your Bordeaux blend, but that was really hit the mark.
It is. Well, that one is my baby. Not just because I'm really proud of how it turned out, but because it was kind of the first one that I risked my own money and effort on, and so it's got a real special place in my heart. Just in that, I that gave me the courage to keep going.
Awesome. So do you plan any food offerings at your tasting room? And can you talk about any upcoming events that you'd like people to know about?
Yeah. So unfortunately, we had a deal worked out with Andre's Kitchen in Walla Walla.
Yeah, they're famous.
Unfortunately, Andre stepped away from the business. So
man.
we lost that deal, which was great because I love getting their food.
Oh, yeah.
But fortunately, someone else has taken over. There's a new truck out back called Wild Time, and I've met them. Super nice people. So we hope, I mean, anyone's allowed to just grab food and bring it into the tasting room. So if you want to grab some Wild Time in Walla Walla, please do so. Please come join us in Turtle. But we may work out a little deal with them. There's another place in town I really like called Foodscapes. And they do like charcuterie boards and stuff, and she's got some fantastic cheese, some
nice
stinky cheeses,
wow.
but she's got some good stuff. So I was thinking about reaching out to them, and there's a few other companies too that we could reach out to for people could pre-order a charcuterie board. And then I think we'll just do snacks. The issue with the health department is that you can either allow dogs inside the tasting room, or you can do food prep, but you can't do both in the same location. Yeah. And since we don't have outdoor seating, I feel kind of like I want to have dogs in the tasting room. I like dogs a lot. Like they're cute.
Your dog that you talked about earlier, is this still alive?
Yes, yeah.
You still have your dog?
She just went through a knee surgery. She has now split tendons in both her knees. Okay. So we've got both her knees fixed up, and she's doing a lot better.
Awesome. So. Well, good. Yeah. So what are you looking forward to most when it comes to the next vintage at Turtle Wines?
So we're kind of early in the season. You know, nothing's really growing yet. The big news is that we're back with Quintessence. So I made a reserve blend from Quintessence was my first year, and then they were sold out every year after that. They're just popular. They're really good at what they do. And so this year, because of some changes in the industry, we were able to get back in with them. And then we can renew that contract if we want to. Nice. So
you got to do that.
Yes. I don't care what they give me. Honestly, exactly. I want our contract with Quintessence. So that's definitely the thing I'm most excited about for next year. But yeah, otherwise, and I'm a little curious. We've had such a mild winter. I'm really curious how bud break's going to look at the start of the season and how things are going to progress from there. But it's February, so got a little time.
And didn't the varmint see his shadow? I think my wife told me this morning. Yep, the groundhog saw his shadow.
I saw that on the social media too. Yeah. I guess
so. That's 6 more weeks. So.
We could be in for a quick season.
Yeah. So, what do you think is the biggest challenge facing the Pacific Northwest wine industry right now?
That's interesting. I think because there has been this kind of plateau of wine sales. People are coming down on prices in other locations that are famous. And so that becomes like, that's our sweet spot. That's our room to compete. So I really think the biggest challenge is to kind of overcome that price gap, that people don't view Washington wines as being as quality because they're more affordable,
right?
Which is crazy. It's just a good deal. Please buy Washington wine. And I think to really getting on now an international stage would be huge for Walla Walla or for Washington.
Yeah.
I think we're ready to compete at that level.
Oh, yeah. And some people are pushing the envelope already.
Yeah. So.
Have you heard of Troth Wines?
I have, yeah.
Yeah. Ray McKee is the winemaker, and Jeff Andrews and those guys out at Andrews Family Vineyards in the Horsehaven Hills.
Okay.
They're doing some great stuff with cab. As a matter of fact, we should maybe... I don't know. Maybe we'll crack open a bottle. We're going to go wine tasting. So
we are going to go wine tasting.
I don't know if we should be sitting here drinking a bunch of wine before we go wine tasting, but...
I'm realizing now that the girlfriend is going to be our designated driver.
Yeah, for sure. Anyway, we need to talk about Troth wines, and maybe at some point you and I can get together and we'll go down and do a tasting in the Horsehaven Hills at their new tasting room.
Yeah, it'd be great. I haven't been out there in a few years.
I think it's new. You'll love it.
Cool.
Well, David, I've learned an awful lot today about you and your winemaking approach, and I appreciate the opportunity to host you today. Before we go, could you remind our audience again about your new winery, Turtle Wines, and just give it a plug and talk about anything that you want, location, hours, wine club, upcoming events, anything you want.
Okay, yeah. Please come to the Turtle Wine Tasting Room in Walla Walla, Washington. We're 315 East Main Street. We've got a really fun vibe in there. It's a great place. We spin records, vinyl, and we'll put on anything you want to listen to.
You do have vinyl there. Yeah, I remember that.
And check us out on Instagram at Turtle Wines, on turtlewines.com. And we do have an event coming up. We don't have a hard date yet, but we are going to be doing a spring club release event. We've done this in the past. We do a shared winemakers event. So us, Truth Teller, Lagana.
Truth Teller closed though, right?
No, they're still open.
They're open in Woodinville.
They're open in Woodinville, and their production facility in Walla Walla is still going. They just closed down the Walla Walla tasting room.
Yes. Okay.
They're just looking for a little less.
Yep. No, that's good that they're still available. Their wines are still available.
So they're still around, and they'll be at the event in Walla Walla. So
awesome.
That'll be fun, and a kind of a new player too, Lacewing Cellars.
Oh, Lacewing, yeah. Matter of fact, I did some wine reviews for them early on when they first started. Yeah, I like the Lacewing stuff that they're doing.
They're really
Leonard Law, right?
Leonard, yep, and Beth, and they're just super nice people.
Yep. Oh, that's great. You know what? I need to get out there. I think that'd be fun. Well, David, thank you. Thank you for joining us on Live the Good Life, and that's all we have for today's episode. Again, for more of Living the Good Life, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Aaron's Wine Chronicles or online at aaronswinechronicles.com. And for a video podcast version of this episode, you can visit my YouTube channel at the @ Aaron's Wine Chronicles 6666. Thank you all for listening, and remember, wherever you go, whenever you can, always live the good life. Until next time.